Hey everyone, happy Mardi Gras! In this video today, I'm going to rank the 20 2023 movies that I saw. So some of these I saw in 2023, and some I've seen this year in 2024, but all of them were released in 2023. I'm going to rank them from my least favorite to my favorite, and I'm going to give each movie a star rating from 0 to 10, using all whole numbers, no fractions, and I'm also not going to have any ties. So if a bunch of movies have the same star rating, I'll still rank them. Of course, each star rating is a range. So if a movie gets a 7, two different movies with 7s, that's still different, right? No movie is the same. So each star rating, each number is still ranged, and I'll rank all the movies even if they have the same star rating. Now, my favorite thing about movies is the fact that they're all shared experiences. So one of these movies I saw on an airplane, but other than that one, I saw all of these movies with friends and family. And it's just so wonderful being able to share these movies with cool people and then chat about them afterwards. And today, I have the awesome opportunity to share all my thoughts about these movies with all of you. And that's awesome. And I really enjoyed the opportunity to share my opinion with y'all. And I also want to hear what y'all have to say. I want to hear your thoughts on these movies. So please, when you're done, let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to have some awesome discussions with all of us together in the comment section below. Just keep it all respectful. And I'd love to have awesome discussions about these movies with all of us chatting about it. So definitely do that if you have some thoughts to share. And I'm going to go over a few more things about my star rating system, and then we'll dive right into the movies. So this is my star rating system. I think most of this is self-explanatory, but I'll just go over a few key things. At 0, the worst does not mean necessarily the worst movie I've ever seen. Just it means among the worst movies I've ever seen. And for 10, again, same kind of thing. It's not necessarily the best movie I've ever seen. It just means among the best movies I've ever seen. As for range, it depends. Best or worst, like 10, best or worst 50. I'm going to go kind of with a wider range. I'm going to say kind of like 50 or so. With this being like the best 50 or so, the best 50 or so movies I've ever seen. And then, for 10 and then for 0, is it among like the worst 50 movies I've ever seen before. And then 4 and 5, the only other thing I think I need to kind of discuss, average kind of has a neutral connotation to me, while mediocre has a more negative connotation. I know sometimes average and mediocre are used kind of interchangeably, but I see average as being neutral, right dead center in the middle, whereas mediocre is slightly below average and, just kind of more negative than positive. And that should do it. Let's go ahead and dive into the movies. In 20th and last place, I have Fast 10, the worst movie I saw this year. So, overall, just like the rest of the franchise, I think these are just meaningless, dumb action movies that have basically no stakes when you have a set of characters who really experience little to no development in this movie or across the whole franchise and who return from death and really are hardly ever put at real, genuine risk. So, there's just nothing really there's no stakes. There's nothing really to care about. Really minimal suspense or really anything to get me invested in these movies. I mainly just watch them because I like watching them with my brother and dad who both like these movies more than I do. Because I enjoy spending time with them. So, but this isn't the worst thing I could watch. It's not a horror movie. I really dislike horror. And there's a few things here or there. I like the message of family. I think it's more of like the whole idea of like this crew of people being like a found family. It's mainly treated as like a joke or a gimmick, but I think there's at least a little bit of a genuine message there. So I like that. And there's a few action things to like here or there. So this is certainly not the worst kind of movie in the world, but still something really lame and lousy that I'm just not a big fan of. So this movie gets 2 stars from me. I think that's pretty fair for how I feel about it. In 19th place, I have Transformers Rise of the Beasts. And man, this is such a bad movie. And, it's really a shame because I'm a huge Transformers fan. I love Transformers Prime. I love the first 3 live-action Transformers movies that Michael Bay did, but this movie's just totally screwed up. The human characters are annoying. No one cares about them. Mirage is probably like the dumbest, most annoying Transformer ever. Optimus Prime is totally messed up, totally out of character, and he's like an asshole for the vast majority of this movie. At least they got Peter Cullen to voice him. For me, Peter Cullen is Optimus Prime, right? So whenever possible, you've got to have Peter Cullen as Optimus. He's a legend. He's awesome. So at least they did that right, but Peter Cullen can't save the terrible writing here. And then the title of this movie, Rise of the Beasts, makes 0 sense at all. It's just, the Beast, like they're the Maximals, right? And the Maximals are basically side characters in this movie, and they play key roles, but this movie isn't really about their rise from anything. It just makes no sense at all. Dumb title. And then this G.I. Joe crossover at the end. I mean, maybe it could be good, but I don't know. Looks just looks like another lousy movie to me. So what they're teasing doesn't really get me excited at all. So this movie gets 2 stars from me. Uh, it's just a lousy movie, and I mean that's saying a lot to be honest, because I'm a huge Transformers fan and not a huge Fast and Furious fan, and this movie barely beats Fast 10 for me. So I mean that really tells you how much they really screwed this Transformers movie up. So hopefully the next Transformers project will be far better than this. In 18th place, I have Creed 3, and this is definitely a step up from Fast 10 and Transformers Rise of the Beasts, but Creed 3 just it pales in comparison to the Rocky movies, just like the other Creed movies. Adonis Creed isn't a terrible character at all. He's fine, but he's just not interesting enough to me to have a whole series of movies made about him. And the fight at the end is lame, and overall, this movie and the rest of the Creed movies simply don't measure up to the legendary movies of the Rocky franchise. I get far more invested in characters like Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed than I do in Adonis. So I'm giving this movie 4 stars. It's a mediocre movie. I mean, there's parts I like. I'm watching and I'm not like not enjoying it. It's a fine movie, right? But the entire time I'm watching, I'm still just thinking in the back of my head like, wow, I mean, this is fine, but this is nowhere near as good as the Rocky movies. So, you know, it's a mediocre movie. In 17th place, I have Sisu. And this is a movie with some cool action in it. And an interesting story to tell that's like not normally told about World War II, right? I mean, there's plenty of World War II movies, but this kind of takes a different, angle, tells a different kind of story that I really haven't seen before in a World War II movie. But other than that, there's really not that much here. Most of the characters are boring and forgettable, and there's a lot of just absurd, unrealistic stuff that happens. And like basically with the main character surviving a bunch of stuff that like no human being would survive, and him doing things that no human being could do, and it just doesn't fit the style of storytelling. I mean, this is a war movie, and it's pretty gritty and violent, so it should be grounded in reality. And I think it's just absurd that they have these silly things going on. It just doesn't fit it at all. And it's just overall just not really a special or memorable movie at all. So, I mean, nothing terrible, but this is a solid 4-star movie for me. It's mediocre, so just like Creed 3, it's a fine movie. I'm glad I saw it, but nothing special. So, my next pick is a movie that a lot of people clearly really like that I don't like nearly as much, and I'm very confident that I have it ranked a lot lower than most people would rank it. But here we go. In 16th place, I have Killers of the Flower Moon. So, this is a story that I'm very glad I learned about, but it's told in a manner that I really don't like, and overall, there's just a lot of problems here. But starting first with just the story it tells, right? I'm very glad that I learned about this story. This is a chapter of human history that's ugly and not good. It's a lot of evil stuff that happens here, unfortunately, to the Osage people. But it's a part of history, that's necessary to look at. I mean, in order to create a better future, we have to look at our past, both the good and the bad. I think, I think everyone would agree with me on that. So it's good to study something like this, especially since this is something that I really don't think is widely known about. I certainly didn't know about this story, and I'd imagine most people are in the same boat, or were in the same boat going into this movie as me, right? Knowing little to nothing about this. So it's good that this story was told, so like a lot more people in the world can learn about it. But at the same time, I just think a documentary would have been better for this rather than a dramatization with a cast. It's like a documentary movie that's shorter than 3.5 hours, or a documentary TV series. I think those would have been a lot better to tell this story. But if you really wanted a dramatization, I think this would have been better as a TV show, for one, or two, like a shorter, much like more like I don't know, like much more efficiently edited movie. This movie does not need to be 3.5 hours. It's just such a bloated, absurdly long movie. Just that I don't know, it's just poorly edited. Just did not need to be nearly this long. But another thing I'll mention is I think the Osage people should have been the main characters. Uh, like they should have been the main characters of this movie, not the killers, right? With the killers, I mean, first of all, they're just evil people that are just hard to follow because they have no redeeming qualities. It's very common in modern movies and TV shows and stuff to have, like the villains be, the main characters, right? Like, like something like Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, Joker, but in a lot of projects like that, usually these people who are evil still have redeeming qualities, some things that are still likable. Here there's nothing. I mean, there's literally nothing to like about these people. these killers. It just makes it hard watching them for like 3.5 hours. It's just hard seeing the despicable things they're doing. You know, I think this would have been a lot better from the perspective of the Osage people for that reason, but also from the reason of like suspense and not really knowing what's going on. Because it's made apparent early on in the movie what the killers are doing. So you know what they're doing very early on. So then it's just a matter of sitting around for hours until everyone else in the movie discovers it. So it's just kind of boring. Whereas if you did it from the perspective of the Osage people, then what you could do is you could not have it be revealed until they find out. So we would be in their boat and really be kind of like figuring this out over time, what's happening along with them. That would have just made a much better, way to tell this story, in my opinion. So I just gave out a lot of criticisms, a lot of suggestions. This is still a movie that, like I said, I'm glad it's a story I'm glad was told. There's some good music in here, and they really, the movie definitely brings you into like the environment and definitely, you know, immerses me in this story that, like I said, again, is hard to watch, but something, I think is important to watch as well. So there's a lot of good things here, but just overall, it just disappoints me because I just see so many flaws and so many ways this could be done better. Like all the things I just kind of rattled off. There's just so many ways you could have done this better. And it's just disappointing that they didn't. So I'm giving this movie 5 stars. I think it's just an average movie when it comes down to it. Not average in the story it tells, but just average in the sense that, like, okay, they did some cool things, they did some good things, but they did a lot of bad things, made a lot of mistakes too. So I think it's just average in how this movie was made. In 15th place, I have Napoleon, and this movie's a mixed bag for me. It has good visuals, good outfits, and has a nice timeline of events, all the pop-ups that keep you on track with where we are in history. But it's too long, and it covers a lot of history back to back to back to back, which makes it feel both rushed and too long at the same time. And I just think this would have been better as a TV series. It still works as a dramatization, right? With Killers of Flower Moon, I said I think a documentary would be better. Here, the dramatization still works. I like Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal of Napoleon, but I just think this would be better as a TV show, where you could have the length to cover all the history, but then divide it up into episodes to make it much more manageable to watch. So I'm giving this 5 stars. It's an average movie. Some good, some bad. I think 5 stars is a good rating here for me. In 14th place, I have Gran Turismo. And this is another mixed bag. There's some cool things here. It's a cool, true story that's, so there's a lot of inspirational stuff here, good messages, cool music with Black Sabbath and Kenny G. A lot of cool things here, but also some annoying things. And I guess chief among the annoying things is just the fact that they tried to combine telling a true story with just a lot of fictional stuff. In telling any true story, of course, you got to take some creative liberties, but you want to keep it to a minimum. You want the story to be like an authentic telling of this real life story, and this just isn't. There's too many fictional characters and stuff they messed with that there's so much stuff, it just pervades the story, and it just kind of ruins it, makes it kind of gimmicky. So I would have preferred if they just were dedicated to telling a really authentic, true story and making it as accurate as possible, or just going in the total other direction and just making a fictional story that wasn't about this true story at all. They should have picked one. So that just takes the movie down. So this movie gets 5 stars from me. Another mixed bag. In 13th place, I have John Wick Chapter 4. So this is a fun action movie. I like this series of 4 movies overall. Keanu Reeves, love him. He's an awesome actor. John Wick is a cool action character. The duel at the end of this movie is fun, but overall, I'm just getting tired of the series. It's just kind of like this stream of endless fights where John Wick just mows through just endless, nameless villains that come on the screen and die 2 seconds later that we just never have any reason to care about. It just gets kind of old. No, the whole series has kind of been like this, but I feel like the story isn't going anywhere new. It's just getting less and less interesting, and they're just they're not taking it in any direction to make me feel like I want to stay with the series and keep watching, for the new chapters. And then other annoying things like the absurd lack of realism with John Wick's survivability. The fact that his special suit basically is like an invincibility suit that lets him survive anything, whether it's being run over by a car or, taking an endless amount of bullets. You'd think eventually the suit would be penetrated and wouldn't be able to protect from anything, and yeah, just thinking realistically, right? It's just dumb. Or you'd think eventually a bullet would hit him in the head where he's not protected by the suit, So that takes me out of the movie and also just takes out suspense because he's going to be fine, And then another dumb thing, this is a smaller thing, but the dance party thing where John Wick is having a bunch of fights and there's killings going on and stuff, and people are just dancing like normal. Just again, another thing that just takes me out of the movie. It's just dumb. So a lot of problems here. And I'll go and make a comparison to Die Hard, which Die Hard, the original Die Hard in 1988, I would argue is, could be my favorite action movie of all time. Might be like, I bet a lot of people share that opinion. Easily one of the best action movies ever made, if not the best action movie ever made. In Die Hard, I think John McClane, he probably kills around a dozen or so villains, but there you have quality over quantity, right? Because all those villains are built up over the course of the movie, especially the head villains. And those guys are people we grow to care about because we become invested in their characters. So it's that much cooler when John McClane goes and kills them, because then it's just built up and those feel like really earned kills. And it's just really cool and exciting because we're invested in all these characters. Whereas here, it's like, okay, you have like hundreds of these nameless villains. Like we never really grow to care about the vast majority of them. And I don't know, it's just not as exciting. And especially now that it's just the same thing over and over in these movies, it's getting tiring. So I'm gonna give this movie 5 stars. It's not terrible at all. I still enjoyed it, had fun with it, but I just think this series is just getting worse over time, and they're just not doing anything new. So I don't know. There's just nothing special about it anymore at all, and it's just kind of getting like, okay. I mean, you want to take a couple hours to enjoy some kind of cool action. It's worth it, but not really. There's not much else here. So, anyways, average movie for me. In 12th place, I have Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So, I definitely have a lot of thoughts about this movie, but my overwhelming thought is just one of disappointment, because the Indiana Jones series of movies is so legendary, and Indiana Jones is such a legendary character. This movie just being kind of okay, average, is just really disappointing. Um, so I'm giving this 5 stars. It's just there's a lot of problems here. Helena is a very annoying character, and Indiana Jones has just been made crotchety and pretty unlikable, or at least decently unlikable, which is crazy because Indiana Jones is a legend. How do you not like him? But they made him unlikable here. And it simply doesn't measure up to the original trilogy of movies. And if you want to hear more of my thoughts, I have a whole video on my channel dedicated to reviewing these 5 movies and ranking them. So if you want to go check that out, definitely check out my Indiana Jones movie ranking. And something I actually did not mention in that video, but from watching it, you could easily tell this. The Indiana Jones music is incredible. John Williams is incredible, and he, composed some wonderful music for these movies. And that goes for this one too. So the music here in Dial of Destiny is excellent, as always. It's actually the only thing that Dial of Destiny has been nominated for at the Oscars. Is well deserved. Because the music, the score is incredible. And there's other good things here too. The opening train scene with the de-aged Indiana Jones, I think that was fun. The de-aged Harrison Ford, rather, right, to be the young Indiana Jones. I enjoyed that. That was fun. It's still an Indiana Jones Adventures. There's still some exciting things, and I thought the Nazi villains were pretty good. The Nazis always make for good villains, and it's always fun to see Indiana Jones beat the Nazis. So, there's definitely some fun things here, but overall, it's just kind of a disappointment. So I'm giving this 5 stars. Again, it's an average kind of movie with some good and bad, but the Indiana Jones series as a whole and Indiana Jones as a character is, it's exceptional, right? I don't want to spoil my other video, my Indiana Jones video, but my top 2 Indiana Jones movies are among some of my favorite movies of all time. I would rank them up there among the best movies ever made, and they're absolutely incredible. So that's like the bar. The ceiling is insanely high for the Indiana Jones series. So this movie just being average is just really a disappointment. In 11th place, I have Saltburn, and this is the first movie I'm giving an above average rating. I think this is a good movie, that tells a unique story with interesting characters. All the key characters are well developed and distinct, while also having overlapping qualities. In particular, I really like Felix. He's at least, from my interpretation, the most genuinely compassionate and kind person among the main characters. And his sister Venetia is another great character, someone different, but also overall a likable person. While she appears on the surface, to have it all and be a confident person, she's someone with a lot of, with a lot of struggles and insecurities. My first impression when I first saw her in the movie is that she's gonna be annoying and bratty and just irritating throughout the movie, but she ends up being someone I care about and someone I really feel sorry for. Despite their flaws and issues, Venetia and Felix care for one another. It's a nice sibling connection, and they're great characters. As for problems in this movie, a lot of it comes down, to Oliver for me. He's just a despicable, evil psychopath, and I don't like having the main character be someone so horrible with no redeeming qualities whatsoever. It's similar to what I mentioned with Killers of the Flower Moon. One of the many things I dislike about that movie is that the main characters, the killers, are horrible people with no redeeming qualities. So, Saltburn is a very dark movie, and it gets especially dark at the end when Oliver murders everyone, which makes the end just, a bit of a nosedive for me. Oliver's still an interesting, villain character for me. I just think the sinisterness and maliciousness is overdone. And in addition to my problems with the sinister nature of Oliver in the movie, especially at the end, but not just Oliver, just overall, I feel like the sinisterness of this movie could have been dialed back a bit. Not saying Oliver had to be some good guy or something. Obviously, he's a villain. He's good that way. I don't know. They could have made this a little less of a dark movie, in my opinion. But, I have a problem just with some of the unanswered questions at the end of the movie. Of course, some unanswered questions are good. I like that this movie prompts discussion and has the audience thinking about the meaning of various things, but you don't want to have plot holes, and I see a few. For one, what happens to Duncan, the butler? He was always very observant and keeping a close eye on Oliver, so I would think he would catch on to what Oliver was doing. I'm not sure how loyal Duncan is to the family, but regardless of his feelings for the family, I think it's clear he doesn't like Oliver, so I'm sure he would be happy to out Oliver for the murders. And I also don't see any evidence in the movie, that would suggest that Duncan would be cool with a guy murdering an entire family. I would think he would want to stop Oliver from murdering a bunch of people. But Duncan just basically disappears at the end of the movie. We don't see any more of him, so I just think that's an issue. A decently sized plot hole. Anyways, another issue, I have is that there's just no investigations, as members of the Saltburn family were found dead. You would think the parents would have pushed for investigations and, into the deaths of their own two children, but yes, we know they're weird and very far from the best parents ever, so, let's say for argument's sake, they don't care at all. You'd still think the police would be very interested in investigating these two deaths, so I think this is just another, annoying hole in the story. Regardless, overall, this is still a good movie to me, and I'm giving it 6 stars. I enjoyed watching it, it prompts some interesting discussions, and it has good performances from its cast, which brings, the characters to life. In 10th place, I have Elemental. Overall, for me, this is another good movie. Some great animation and some really nice life messages to share. Messages about, different people of different backgrounds and different personalities and people having different interests, all being able to come together and get along and enjoy each other's company. And also, messages about family relationships and how to, be able to, especially the parent-child relationship, but overall just the family relationship, being able to remain a tight-knit, loving family while also navigating, the highs and lows and, the triumphs and challenges of life. So just some wonderful messages here. As for cons, even though it's kind of a short movie, I feel like it's kind of too long for the story it has to tell. And there's some, kind of annoying music in the movie I don't really like as much. And some characters that can be annoying. And overall, this just isn't nearly as good as the best of Disney Pixar. Like Toy Story, The Incredibles, Ratatouille, Cars. Those are all exceptional movies, whereas this is, just a good movie, which is fine. So 6 stars for Elemental for me. It's a good movie. I like it. In 9th place, I have the Super Mario Brothers movie. Another good movie for me. Great animation, lots of fun, tons of great music. So a great score by Brian Tyler. I love Brian Tyler. He's awesome. He's composed so many awesome things, including the Transformers Prime music. That's him. He's done tons of other things. He's awesome. And then a great soundtrack. Tons of awesome songs. Thunderstruck, by AC/DC. Take on Me, from Aha. Battle Without Honor or Humanity by Tomiyasu Hotei. What else? Holding Out for a Hero, Bonnie Tyler. And then blanking. No Sleep Till Brooklyn, Beastie Boys. Tons of awesome songs here in this movie, and a bunch of great elements of the different Mario games incorporated. I mean, for me, I see from the games I've played like Mario Kart, Donkey Kong, and of course Super Mario Brothers. See stuff from all those games. I'm sure there's tons of other things, as well. But those are kind of the, some of the biggest games I've played. Tons of awesome stuff. As for my problems with the movie, I just think overall it's just there's too much goofiness and silliness here. I mean, I get it. This is a movie mainly aimed at kids, but I would have preferred like a better balance between fun and serious. And in particular, like I don't know. Honestly, not just in particular. Honestly, all these characters. I think Mario and Luigi are just kind of annoying and silly, but a lot of the other characters, Toad and Donkey Kong, it's just they're too goofy and too silly. And I think they should have dialed that back a little bit. You still could have this be a kid-friendly movie while having them just be more balanced between silly and serious. So that's kind of where some of the problems arise here. But some of the silliness is fun. I mean, I like the Peaches song. I know it's silly, but it's funny. And Jack Black is incredible. Love Jack Black. So that Peaches song is fun, and so some of the goofiness and stuff is fun. I just wish they dialed it back a little bit. But overall, this is a good movie to me. I'm giving it 6 stars. I had a lot of fun with it. So it's a good movie to me. In eighth place, I have Plane. Just really not much for me to say here. This is just a fun, simple action story. I really enjoyed it. Gerard Butler and Mike Colter are awesome. It's a nice length. Just a lot of fun. It's a very good movie. I'm giving it 7 stars. I mean, definitely nothing earth shattering. Has some kind of lame, forgettable villains and, nothing exceptional or like earth shattering about it, but still really fun and enjoyable. Definitely a really solid movie. So 7 stars here from me. In seventh place, I have The Equalizer 3, and just similar to Plane, this is an awesome action movie. Nothing, revolutionary or anything like that, but a really fun, cool action movie with some cool characters and cool fights. Denzel Washington's awesome. He's a great actor, and I think he's great as Robert McCall. And overall, this is a cool series. All three of these Equalizer movies, all cool action movies that I would all I'd definitely be willing, down the line to rewatch this series. Just really cool action movies. And Dakota Fanning's good here too, as Emma Collins. And overall, just a fun movie. I'm giving it 7 stars. Really solid, very good action movie. Very glad I watched this. Awesome movie. In sixth place, I have Extraction 2. And just like the previous two movies, this is just another really awesome action movie. I'm giving this 7 stars, just like the previous two movies. And, I think Chris Hemsworth is awesome here. He's a really cool actor. I love him as Thor. I love him here as Tyler Rake. He's a badass, action hero who also has, a lot more to his character, and that gets fleshed out a lot in this movie and makes him, very human and very likable. Just a really cool character to follow. And clearly this series is not done, so we're going to be seeing more of Tyler Rake, which I'm excited for. And there's other cool characters in this movie around him, and a lot of cool action scenes, and especially like the whole prison break, and that was early on in the movie, and other stuff later. Just really cool, visually a great movie, just awesome, well put together fights. Just an awesome movie, really fun. And all three of these movies, Plane, The Equalizer 3, and Extraction 2, were all on the same level for me at 7 stars. But like I said, I like this order here. Plane, then The Equalizer 3, just above that. And then Extraction 2, even above Equalizer 3. So, awesome movies. Kind of splitting hairs to rank these three. But all three solid, awesome action movies, with Extraction 2 being the top of all three. In fifth place, I have Barbie. And I have a lot of thoughts about this movie, but overall, I really like it. I think it's a really good movie, and I'm giving it 7 stars. I think it's a unique movie that tackles serious issues and shares important messages in a fun fashion. There's a lot of fun stuff here, costumes and designs, and cool variety of music, many genres, which I wasn't expecting. A lot of, pop and rap, which I was definitely expecting, but also disco and rock, and it's all cool to have all these different genres. I like it. To have a great variety, and I'm a big rock fan, but I like the other genres as well, and a lot of cool stuff here. And I heard Slash was also involved too, with some of the music here, which is awesome. Slash is a legend. Um, but at its core, right, there's some fun stuff in this movie, but at its core, this is definitely a serious movie with a more mature message, intended for older audiences. Um, but I guess the best way I would describe this movie is I would describe it as an invitation for discussion. This movie is definitely, about women and the various, inequalities and issues they've faced in our society. And, obviously this is accomplished by making this a satire and having it be a role reversal where you have, the roles of men and women swapped. And, you have a lot of exaggeration for effect, right? So the way I see the Kens is the Kens aren't really supposed to be men, but they're basically supposed to be, basically what they are is they're taking negative qualities that some men possess and basically exaggerating the crap out of them and making those kind of like negative traits like this kind of like fake being, right? So each Ken is kind of just like they're kind of the personifications of these negative qualities. And it's done to call out these kinds of qualities and negative things. Um, and I think it's done well. I like movies that make you think. I like movies that are different, and I like movies that prompt discussion. This movie does all of that, and it's not really supposed to be fun. I mean, honestly, I was uncomfortable during this movie, and I think that's a good thing. I think that's how this movie is supposed to be, but it's not done, at least in my opinion, in an anti-men way. I don't think the point of this movie is to say screw men. What it's supposed to do, and actually, I would argue the opposite. Really, I think men are a part of the target audience for this movie. I think it's meant for everyone. It's not exclusively made for women. This movie is definitely, in my opinion, targeted to include men and involve them in the discussion. The whole point of this movie, the way I see it, is to bring everyone is to bring everyone together and have us all work together to improve our society for all of our sakes. And I got to see this movie with my mom. I really enjoy watching with my mom and having a lot of discussions with her about it afterwards. And she definitely, um, you know, I think appreciated a lot of what this movie was saying, and I definitely enjoyed discussing it with her. Because at the end of the day, I have plenty of amazing women in my life, friends and family, and I want to do my best to show them the respect they deserve, and to show them the compassion and kindness that they deserve. They're wonderful people that I'm, insanely appreciative to have in my life, and I want to make sure I'm doing my best to be, a very good person and treat them, like I said, with the respect and compassion that they deserve. And I think this movie just opens up the floor to have these kind of discussions that I think are important for all of us to be involved in. And I think that's really great and really special. And it's really cool and clever how this movie was able to communicate these kinds of messages. But the one thing I'll say, my biggest issue with this movie, is I think at the end of the movie, what would have made this a much better movie overall would have been I think they should have broken from the satire and made a clear, definitive message of unity, bringing everyone together, having us all work together. Because at the end of the day, men, women, we are all everyone. We're all better off together. We need each other. We're better for knowing each other. We're better for working with one another. We make each other better. We make each other stronger, and we need everyone, right? And I think they should have done they could have done a better job just really clearly making that point by breaking from the satire at the end and making this clear message. Because you have a lot of people who interpreted this movie as like anti-men. Like a lot of people see this movie and think it's like raining down hate on men, and that is a very legitimate, valid interpretation. Anyone with that interpretation is not wrong or stupid or anything of the sort. People seeing this as an anti-men movie are 100% legitimate, and people seeing it the opposite, seeing it not as anti-men, and that's kind of where that's where I fall. I don't think this is an anti-men movie, but I can see why the people in the who feel it is anti-men. I can see where they're coming from because this definitive kind of message is absent from the end, and I think they could have just done a better job really making that clear message at the end. And that's why I think you see this movie's become so divisive. Is you have a lot of people who see it as anti-men and a lot of people who don't. So I think they could have done a much better job at the end, making a clear message of unity and bringing us all together and having everyone work together and respect one another. They could have done a much better job at the end of doing that. But still, overall, I think this is a good movie that's just simply held back from being even better because of, like I said, the issues at the end. So I wish they could have done that. Wish they could have had the ending be, like I said, this more definitive message. But still, this is a really cool movie that brought up a lot of really cool discussions, and really impressed that this movie is able to do that. And really awesome that I got to see this with my mom, and enjoyed, like I said, the discussions I've had since seeing this movie. So I'll move forward after watching this movie. I 100% believe I'll move forward having been being a better person, having seen this movie, thought about it, reflected on it, having discussions with my mom and other it's going to help make me a better person and better able to respect the women in my life and just everyone in my life, being a better person. I think that's really cool that this movie can do that and have that kind of effect. So, really cool movie overall. Barbie, definitely a very good movie. In fourth place, I have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and I'm going to kind of discuss this in two different parts. The first thing I want to talk about is what I see as the core of this movie, and that is the story of Lylla, Rocket, Floor, and Teefs. And this is an absolutely incredible story. It's easily the best part of this movie, easily one of the most meaningful parts of the MCU, and some of the most meaningful and moving content I've ever seen on screen. It's just such a wonderfully crafted story, and I'm so impressed at how this movie is able to take these four characters, right? One of which, Rocket, that I have met before and seen before, but he's someone I don't know. I don't see much of his background before this movie, right? I didn't know much about his whole backstory before seeing this movie. And then Lila, Flor, and Teefs I have never seen before watching this movie, and yet in such a short amount of time, this movie is able to craft these four characters into some of the best characters I've ever seen, and it gets me fully invested in them, and they get me to care for them 100%. I care about them so much, and that's what makes it so tragic and devastating when Lila, Flor, and Teefs are killed. It's terrible and it's just disturbing, what they went through and what happens to them, and it's just such a well crafted story. And then especially I love the moment when Rocket is in what I interpret to be heaven, and he's briefly reunited with his three friends before being like revived in the finite world and continuing his life, in the finite world. But Lila tells him before, he resumes his finite life. She tells him, it's not time just yet, but one day they'll all four be reunited. And that's just such a beautiful way to kind of wrap up that part of the story, because I love that it's basically, it shows us there's light at the end of the tunnel, right? We can see that, even though, Lila, Flor, and Teefs are dead and Rocket's still alive, right? One day all four of them will be reunited together, and they'll be able to, be together forever in their infinite perfect lives in heaven. It's just such a beautiful message and just such a beautiful, wonderful way to end the story. So I can, leave with a good, positive feeling knowing that these four friends will be back together one day, and they'll be together for, like I said, all of infinity and their perfect lives in heaven. And it's so beautiful. I love it. If you just took this part of the story out and made this like a short film about just Lila, Rocket, Flor, and Teefs, just these parts of the movie together as a short film, easy 10 out of 10 for me. Just a masterpiece. Absolutely amazing. As for the rest of the movie, I would give the rest of the movie a 5 out of 10. I think it's just a mixed bag. You got some of the classic humor and fun of the previous movies and appearances for the Guardians. And they're a cool crew overall. I like them. They're good heroes, and they have great chemistry. The cast has great chemistry, and they bring these characters to life, and they're cool, distinct characters that, fly around the galaxy listening to awesome tunes and fighting, some cool battles. And, yeah, they're cool heroes. I like them. But still, I think this movie has a lot of problems, a lot of dumb, kind of annoying action in the movie that's not really as meaningful as I would like it to be. Gamora is insanely annoying. She's insufferable throughout this whole movie for me. In the High Evolutionary, it's kind of a mixed bag for me. I'm fine with him being so evil. In fact, him being so evil and having no redeeming qualities actually works well in this movie. Like I complained about with Killers of the Flower Moon and Saltburn, I complained about the villains there being so overly evil and sinister and having no redeeming qualities. I complained about that because they were the main characters of those movies, right? Whereas here, the High Evolutionary isn't the main character here. We're not seeing this movie through his eyes, right? That's where I have the problem with, like, the villain having no redeeming qualities. I have that problem when they are the main character or the main characters, when we're seeing the world through their eyes in the movie or show or whatever it is, right? I don't like that. I think if the main character or main characters or the villains, they have to have some kind of relatability. They have to have something to kind of be like, they have to have some good attributes and good aspects of their character, right? They just have to have something there for me to be like, okay, they're a villain, but they at least there's a few good things they do. They have a few good, they're not totally all bad character, right? They at least have some sense of morality, something there to make me like at least cling on to them a little bit, Whereas here, it's fine. He's not the main character. We're not seeing this through his eyes. So I'm fine with the High Evolutionary being totally evil and, just an evil psychopath, And it makes it all the more, like, awesome when he gets beaten in the end of the movie. But I guess I just don't like that, I don't know. He wasn't really charismatic or very interesting. Like, I don't know, someone like Thanos in the MCU, I think is just much more interesting as a villain. I mean, he's someone who I guess has more of that, like, he's not quite as, like, evil, and he's not quite as much of a psychopath, I would argue, is the High Evolutionary. He's someone you could argue has more redeeming qualities. But beyond that, he's just a more interesting kind of character. I get more like invested in as a villain. And then also I just feel like the High Evolutionary's like powers kind of vary too much, like scene to scene. It's almost like his powers kind of increase or decrease depending on what each scene needs to happen. And I don't know, not a huge fan of him. And then there's like this scene where like all of his subordinates like attempt to like turn on him, but then they just kind of stand there and give him plenty of time to like, take them out. Like when they could have just like I would think just kill him, by taking him by surprise. Just seemed kind of dumb. There's a lot of that kind of dumb stuff throughout this movie. So problems with like Gamora and just kind of some dumb, annoying stuff and things like that just take this movie down for me. So that stuff's annoying and that prevents this movie from being ranked any higher. But overall, I'm giving this movie 7 stars. By having kind of like the story of Lila, Rocket, Florence Thieves, which as I've made very clear is insanely good, amazing, incredible. That's a 10 out of 10 for me. But that is a minority of the movie. Even though it's at the core of the movie, it's kind of, it's much shorter in terms of like runtime, right? The vast majority of the movie is the rest of it, and that's more of a 5 out of 10. So 5, 10, I'm going to go with 7 stars overall. Weighting more of the 5 out of 10 parts because that's more of the movie. So give the 7, so it's closer to 5 than 10. I feel good with that. It's a very good movie overall because of the absolutely incredible story of Lila, Rocket, Florence Thieves, but then the rest of it kind of just prevents it from being any higher than a 7. So 7 stars. I highly recommend watching this movie. Really, really wonderful. And Lila, Rocket, Florence Thieves, I will always remember these characters forever, and they will always stay with me. And they're the reason I will definitely make sure to rewatch this movie over and over again because of them and their incredible, moving, meaningful story. A story that will always be meaningful to me, and I will always care about and always remember. Absolutely incredible. In third place, I have Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. This is just, this is a really good movie. This is a very well-crafted, intelligent action movie with a lot of fun, cool fights and stuff, but also a very complex, interesting, engaging story. Just like Mission Impossible is known for, and you got the, returning awesome, cool heroes, and especially, Ethan Hunt, Tom Cruise is great here, and awesome stunts, and great, choreography, and fight scenes, and locations, and just a really complex, really cool, action thriller story, that's kind of, also tackling, a very interesting modern threat, with AI, showing how the series can kind of evolve with the times and continue to like involve like modern like themes while also keeping like the old elements that we love and don't want to change, right? The cool aspects that we love about the series, so basically great balance of the old and the new and just a really well done crafted movie. I really like this movie a lot. As for cons, the things that keep this movie down, I think Grace is very annoying for most of the movie. She doesn't really become tolerable or likable until the end. Especially just she kind of makes Ethan Hunt seem kind of dumb, how she keeps backstabbing him over and over again, and he kind of just keeps, going along with her. It's just, I don't know, just, I didn't like her for most of the movie. And then another problem I have is, kind of like the end of, like, the big stunt of the movie where, like, Ethan Hunt drives off, the edge of this massive cliff, on, on his bike, and it's just kind of like, well, it was an amazing stunt. I mean, so incredible that Tom Cruise did this stunt. Just absolutely incredible. But then it ends on a kind of stupid note when he just, conveniently is able to, like, perfectly or near perfectly target, like, the train and, from, like, so far away and from such a high altitude is able to, like, get his landing, like, as close to perfect as possible to where he actually manages to, like, contact the side of the train, which, I mean, it would be nearly impossible to actually, like, get that close to your target, right? I mean, considering how far and high up he was, it's like, there's no way you'd be able to, like, time it right to, like, get to the train, right? But let's say you do. Okay, he hits the side of it. Somehow he's able to break through the side of, like, this train car, which I would think you wouldn't be able to. And then he does it, but then somehow he's, like, not injured. I mean, if that didn't kill you, I mean, you'd be so badly messed up. And then, of course, it also happens at just the right timing to save Grace. It's just a whole moment that's just so preposterous and absurd. It could never happen. It just takes you out of the movie. Yeah, I mean, Mission Impossible, like, he does some, you know, stuff I would say is not necessarily realistic, but for the most part, it's a grounded movie. It's not something that has like absurd lack of realism or anything. It's relatively grounded in our real world, you know? So having something this like absurd happen just took me out of the movie and I just thought it was just poorly done. This could have been done much better. But overall, this is still a great movie. I'm giving it 7 stars. Really cool, intelligent, complex, fun action movie that I definitely recommend watching somewhere where you can pause it, which is what I was able to do. Pause it and discuss it with everyone I was watching it with, and just I watched it with my dad and my brother, and it was great to be able to pause it and kind of discuss and kind of we could all kind of catch up and discuss with one another kind of what had just happened and kind of go over stuff. Much better to do it that way, I think, than watching it in the theater, where I feel like you could easily get lost in the complexity. And it's great that it's complex. I like this story a lot, but definitely the ability to pause it and kind of fully understand, or at least mostly fully understand and appreciate the story as it unfolds is great. So 7 stars here. Overall, really great movie. Very good. In second place, I have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and this is just such a wonderful movie. It's my runner-up, my second favorite movie of 2023. I love it, and there's so many positive things I have to say about it. Beautiful and creative animation. I love the comic book style. Great set of characters. I love Miles Morales. I love Gwen Stacy. I love Peter B. Parker. So great characters, fun action, cool music. Love the variety of music. I love that Gwen Stacy's in a rock band, as a drummer. And I heard Def Leppard name dropped. It's awesome. Great humor, a lot of fun stuff in this movie, but also more serious things. A lot of good character development. Especially for Miles Morales and for Gwen Stacy. They're superheroes, but at the same time, they also have struggles. They're characters. It's very real. They're just like real life. They're people with strengths and weaknesses, and they have triumphs and they have failures, right? They have struggles, they have problems. It makes them relatable and likable. They're likable, good people. They're heroes, but they also have problems too, you know? And this is just really, really good to be able to see that complexity, and realism, and also I think this movie is really impressive in that it has a universal audience. I think just so many different people can get something out of this movie and relate to it. Kids and adults, men and women. I think really anyone can watch this movie and connect to it. Obviously in their own unique way, but I think this movie can connect with really anybody, and that's really impressive and really cool that it can do that. And I love there's high stakes and real sense of danger. Great life lessons. Especially with Miles and Gwen, a lot of life lessons to draw out of their stories, and then a lot of ethical dilemmas, especially two key ones. Like the two kind of big ethical dilemmas in this movie. You have one with Gwen Stacy and her dad. So the two of them is like Gwen kind of debating if and when she should reveal who she really is to her dad, and then the big part of the ethical dilemma is when her dad is faced with, okay, now he's found out that who Gwen is, and he has to decide whether to arrest her or to kind of put that to the side and focus on being her father, right, and supporting her. And he ends up deciding to try and arrest her. So he decides to try and arrest her, and he's obviously stopped. But his intention was just kind of go for it. He kind of debated it for a bit, but then decided, he's gonna just try and arrest her. And I think he made the wrong choice personally. It's definitely debatable. I can definitely respect arguing either side, but I think he made the wrong choice, and I think he really didn't support his daughter as he should have in that crucial moment. But fortunately, later in the movie, we see that he clearly reflected on his decision and left the police force, and he was able to patch up the relationship with his daughter, and it's beautiful to see that they both still love each other and still have a very tight father-daughter bond. It's really cool to see. And then the second ethical dilemma is with Miles, and with Miles kind of trying to save his father, right? So Miguel O'Hara says that he's kind of like the leader of controlling the whole Spider-Verse and keeping all these different worlds, the way they're supposed to be and safe, right? He says in all these different worlds, right? These police captains have to die, right? It's just how the story goes, and that's how you have to keep all these worlds intact. So he basically says, Miles' dad is gonna have to die, and we have to let him because that's how we maintain all these different worlds, right? They could all collapse and fall apart. It's like everyone in all these different universes could die if we don't, like follow this. But Miles refuses, and he says, Miles is basically like, no way, I'm not letting my dad die. I'm saving him. It's a very, very interesting ethical dilemma where, I mean, man, just it would be so difficult to decide what to do in that situation. And but Miles is committed to saving his father, and I respect the hell out of that. But I also respect what the others are trying to do with Miguel and others, trying to think about everybody, and it's what makes it so difficult. That's what makes it so interesting. That kind of complexity where you don't know. It's very difficult and it's very interesting to discuss. That's what makes this interesting. Where it's not some easy decision. What's also interesting is you have a lot of different heroes who are good people, but of course, the right thing to do is subjective. So you have different good people who are trying to do the right thing, trying to do good things, but they have different ideas what that is. And that's what's so interesting. So Miles has a different idea of what's good than Miguel. And, all these different spider people all have a different idea of what to do. And it's just very interesting and, very realistic for real life. There's tons of different good people in our world, but, we have different ideas. You can have many different good people with different opinions and different beliefs about, what's right and wrong and all kinds of things like that. It's just a wonderful reflection of real life, you know? So, I'm so impressed overall with this how great this movie is on so many different levels. I struggle to find issues with it, but I'll go ahead and point out a few. I think the spot was kind of annoying, and Miles escaping all the spider people was definitely far fetched. I think he beats Miguel O'Hara too easily, or at least a little too easily. So I think that was a bit silly. That could have been done a little bit better. And then I think a handful of Gwen's lines feel a little awkward to me, like a line about her like to like the woman on the bike, she's kind of like, oh, like, would you like adopt me or could you adopt me or something? It kind of felt just a little, I guess, her personality is kind of, like that, but I guess that felt a little, I don't know, out of place to me still. I don't know, a bit of a weird line, but again, these are nitpicks. I'm just trying to find things to complain about just for the sake of having some cons. Nothing's perfect, so everything has some flaws, and this one has them, but just very few in my opinion. So I'm giving this movie a 10 out of 10. As I, discussed in the beginning, I'm treating a 10 out of 10 is among the best 50 or so movies I've ever seen. I think this falls into that. Is this like a top 10 for me? No. All time? No, definitely not. But top 50? I think so. I feel confident if I were to go ahead and make a list of 50 or so my favorite movies of all time, I think this is definitely in there. This is a wonderful movie, and I cannot wait for the third film and then just to be able to rewatch these movies throughout the whole future. Wonderful movie. Really awesome stuff. A masterpiece. Definitely deserving of a 10 out of 10 for me. And now, moving on to number one, my favorite movie of 2023. In first place, I have Oppenheimer. And Oppenheimer, I'm sure many of you are not surprised by this pick. I'm sure many of you agree with me on this pick. But this is just an absolute masterpiece, a wonderful movie. Just a wonderful blend of history, politics, science, emotion, just a beautiful, well-crafted movie that's able to just immerse the audience, immerse all of us in the life of J. Robert Oppenheimer, and give us at least a tiny taste of the kind of roller coaster of a life he had, with, dealing with the moral implications of what he was doing, and the all the different triumphs he had, but also the failures and the struggles, the mental and physical struggles he endured, all the dirty politics he kind of had to deal with, and, and also showing us, his great attributes and showing us his flaws and his strengths of character and his weaknesses of character, and really just shows us who this person, was. It shows us who Oppenheimer was, and really, I think, does a great job actually giving us a glimpse of what it must have felt like. I feel like the whole movie, the whole 3-hour movie is an experience of just giving us just this idea of what it must have felt like to be there. Because obviously none of us can know for sure what it felt like to be there, but this is a wonderful way to just throw us right into it. And it's just such a well-crafted, brilliant movie that jumps between all these different points in his life while doing it in an organized, logical fashion. It's just great. And I'm a political science major in college, and I love seeing the political sides of all of this, and I enjoy learning the history. I'm a history minor, so I enjoy seeing the history. And the science is interesting too, and just seeing who this man was is just very interesting, and it's just so well crafted here. Brilliant film by Christopher Nolan. And it takes the top spot. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse gave it a really good run for its money. No other movie on this list came close to beating Oppenheimer. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse did. So much so that it actually forced me to rewatch Oppenheimer. I saw Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse much more recently. It's actually, I believe, the last movie I saw on this list. It's the most recent one I saw it for the first time. And I was like, wow. I mean, man, this is so good. Spider-Man, that it forced me to rewatch Oppenheimer. And after rewatching Oppenheimer, Oppenheimer was able to hold on and keep the top spot for me. But really splitting hairs. I mean, Oppenheimer is my number one. I'm giving it 10 out of 10 stars. It's a masterpiece. Definitely among my 50 best movies of all time. Top 10, no, but definitely among my top 50. Just a brilliant, brilliant movie, and narrowly edges out Spider-Man and takes the top spot. So Oppenheimer is my favorite movie of 2023. Thank you all so much for watching. I know this is a long video, but thank you, especially to those who, stuck it through, have watched this entire thing. Thank you so much. And then to those who, kind of just bounce around through the video, thank you so much. Whether you've spent a second watching this video or, watch the entire thing, I really appreciate you. Definitely, please let me know in the comment section below what your thoughts are. Just keep it all respectful. And thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate you. Thank you all so much.